Okay. I guess we're still waiting on Tabitha?
I believe so.
I'm here. I'm just waiting patiently for the 5:30 to arrive.
Okay.
But keep chatting. Get to know each other.
Hey, Cassandra, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Cassandra. How are you?
I'm not sure who replied the first time, but I will.
Okay.
I'm Cassandra.
Actually, very hot in Dothan.
Oh, in Dothan.
Oh, yeah.
Very hot in Tuscaloosa, too.
Oh, yeah.
Very hot in St. Clair County.
I'd say we've got a climate crisis going on.
Absolutely.
Hey y'all, this is Gayla up in Marshall County.
Hey, Gayla.
Hey,
How
yeah.
are you?
And it's hot here too.
It is. Yes.
We're just a hot bunch of people, aren't we?
Yes.
Come here, Tiki.
Hey, Tiki.
Hey, I gotta get her so she'll hush.
Absolutely.
When I called in, it said there were 16 people, so I make 17. So we've got movers and shakers.
Movers and shakers for sure.
We're up to 23.
Yeah, that's what I see, 23.
Oh, no,
All right, yay.
we're up to many more. They're coming.
Where do you see? Oh, let's see. Bottom. Which is it?
26 right now.
Awesome.
26.
Yay.
Linda Turner, did you tap in?
Laddie Hardy.
Hey, Tasha.
Hey, Tasha.
Hi.
Hi.
No, we are not gonna bark.
Hey, on the count of 3, can I get a "We love Tabitha"? 1, 2, 3.
We love Tabitha.
But you don't have to love me to be on the call. Let's be clear.
Well, the plan certainly sounds great. So
Yes.
Good.
we love you for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It was time. All right, we'll give it maybe 2 more minutes because we're still growing. We're up to 34 people now.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
Truman. I'm gonna put myself on mute.
I should probably go ahead and put myself on mute.
Close my door.
This is Christy Kirkland. I just wanted to let y'all know I'm here, but I'm putting myself on mute too.
Hi, Chrissy.
Me too. This is Donna, but I'm on mute, so I'm still here.
All right.
That's okay.
Did we identify ourselves when we come in?
Please do. You don't have to, but we encourage it.
I have barky dogs.
Charlie McElmore, Clark County Democratic Executive Committee.
This is Kathy Lamberth here in Huntsville, Alabama.
Hey, Kathy.
Laddie.
Tabitha, I don't know if you can hear me. This is Harry Pondy. I'm from Mobile. I'm actually in Africa right now.
You're in Africa?
What?
And you called in? Wow, I'm honored.
I met you at Dolphin Street.
I remember. I remember that one. In that sports bar that we made work.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is Bernard Simonson.
Hey, Bernard.
Hello.
Hey, hey.
Hello.
And this is Judy Taylor.
Hello.
Hello, this is
Oh,
Philip
wow.
Lambert.
So many friends. Hey, guys, it's Willisha.
Hey, Alicia.
Aw.
Joanne Cummings from Morgan County.
All right, we are up to 47 participants.
Laddie.
Hey, welcome.
Elijah from Montgomery.
Hey, Elijah.
Judy Taylor from Tuscaloosa.
Hi,
Hey,
Judy.
Judy.
Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. Possibly, you know, depending on the situation.
It wasn't my family.
All right. Well, I would like to do something wild and just ask that we real quick name where you're calling in from. Not that your name isn't really important too, but it'd be fun to just get a sense
could be
of
possible. Why don't you
how broad of a
pencil
group
that
we've got.
shoot me,
So I am going to,
you know, the addresses and all that stuff.
hold on, I'm going to mute everybody first. Get rid of some of the background noise. I don't know, it's too many people. I mean, in a good way, too many. In a good way, too many. All right, so we'll skip over introductions. I think it's going to be too complicated to do that. But maybe what we can suggest is that in the chat box, do y'all see where chat is? You click on the word chat, your chat should show up in the right-hand side. Sure enough, Trisha McLean from Etowah, Corey Creel from Elmore County. Oh, here they come, so many, so many. So that'll let us see who everybody is and where you're from. And I'm just delighted to see such a broad geographic diversity among this group. I think that is critical to our success. And I also want to acknowledge that there are some press on this call. This call will be recorded, whether or not there were press present. We're going to record this call and make it public. So please keep that in mind if that changes anything that you want to say. But there are a couple members of the press on the line today. And everything that we do will be public throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and if you have questions along the way, if you would type them into the chat box, we will monitor that and chime in, take questions a little bit later on in this conversation. So if you don't know me already, I'm Tabitha Eisner. Hello. And I want to give a little background on how we got to this point. So, you know, I decided to run for party chair back in April. And I've been traveling across the state and talking to people about what's going on. And throughout my travels, all along, my assumption was that this issue about needing to hold, needing to pass new bylaws and needing to hold a new election for chair and vice chair, that it was just going to be handled. I didn't know whether it was going to be the current party leadership who would handle it or whether the DNC was going to intervene to handle it, but I assumed somebody was going to handle it. And as the months have gone by, I've gotten less and less confident that someone was going to handle it. And I was really nervous about leading this process because I'm running for the party chair, and I recognize that it could look like I'm doing a self-serving act here by pushing for this election. So I just want to acknowledge that elephant in the room and say, I'm taking a risk that it'll look that way. That's not my intention. I am here because I recognize that we are in a real crisis where if we don't get bylaws passed and a new election held, our delegates will not be seated at the 2020 presidential Democratic convention. And that means that our voters here in Alabama their voices will not be counted. And we already feel disempowered as Alabama Democrats. We can't afford to feel any less empowered than we already do. We need to make sure that Democratic voters across our state are having their voices heard. So I was thinking about, I was reading an article about open source technology. And open source technology, if you're not familiar, is software where someone develops software and rather than copyright it, patent it, and try and make money off of it for themselves or try and make sure that anyone who wants to use it has to go through them, someone instead says, the author of the software instead says, this will be even more useful if other people contribute to it. I bet
Hey, Tabitha.
Yes.
Tabitha, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is Doug Jones. And
hey, Senator Jones.
I appreciate the opportunity to come. Can I give some folks an update on where things stand as of today? Because I think it's really important because people haven't fully known and appreciated, but things are moving in a very, very positive direction. And if you don't mind, could I give that update before you talk about this? Because I think it may make a difference on what ultimately happens with this call.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. All right. There's a couple of things I'd like to say first. I hope there's a lot of people on this call. I don't know how many, but as you know, this has gotten pretty ugly in the media. And there's been a lot of accusations made. There's been a lot of accusations made that I want to take over the party. I don't want to take over the party. I don't have any desire, but I do want to build a party that I can trust and that I can raise money for, because I can't raise money right now. No one is going to give money to the Democratic Party that's in the shape that we are now. The second thing is, number one, I didn't support a slate of all white candidates. I supported one candidate who was running against a white candidate. So I wanted to spell that. And the third thing is that there has been this fear among some people, and they've kind of conflated some things, that what is being happened with the challengers that challenged Nancy and Randy's election is that they were somehow working to dilute the African-American votes on the state Democratic Executive Committee. That's farthest thing from the truth. What has been going on over the last 7 or 8 months is an effort to be more inclusive with the Democratic Party in Alabama, as opposed to exclusive. We have not been in compliance with DNC bylaws for years. We have not had a single affirmative action program that was designed to bring in youth, Hispanics, LGBTQ, disabled, you name it. There has been nothing done. And in fact, the bylaws have been modified over time in order to restrict any participation other than the minority caucus. So we've been trying to add a lot of things, a lot of people, to get our party to really reflect both Alabama and the Democratic electorate. And so after the challenge, the challengers and their counsel, along with a number of others, have been working with both the DNC Credentials Committee and the Rules and Bylaws Committee. This is going over the last 7 or 8 months, because the Rules and Bylaws Committee have been submitting things to the state party to say, these are the bottom line things that you have got to do in order to come into compliance. All of those things that were suggested were completely rejected by the state party. And that's where we find ourselves today. We find ourselves with elections that were invalid, an election for a delegate selection plan that was invalid, and the party, the DNC.
National Democratic Party is
that's
telling
correct.
us
The DNC.
do something.
Yes.
We're not even going to be able to have delegate convention. You're not even
correct. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So let me tell you what has happened over the last, since the Rules and Bylaws Committee rejected things back in August. And by the way, the Credentials Committee is the one that stripped Nancy and Randy of their credentials. This committee and then the Rules and Bylaws Committee is a separate committee, and they're meeting again this Friday. And as of today, there is a group of SDC members that include, and I don't know all the names here, but I know it includes Anthony Daniels, Carol Marks, Napoleon Bracey, Chris England, and others who have submitted proposed bylaws to the Rules and Bylaws Committee that have been compiled over the last few months from what the suggestions from the DMC. When the DNC would come back and say, these are the things that you need to do, people were taking note of that. And so these have been compiled to present to the Rules and Bylaws Committee Friday with a request that they order Nancy Worley to present these to the full committee forthwith, as soon as possible. So let me run down with you just a summary. And these are going to start going out because these just have been submitted today. They're going to start getting out there on social media in different areas. There'll be a summary. The bylaws changes themselves are 30 or 40 pages, but there'll be a summary. Essentially, it does several things, so bear with me here. And I'm going to try to go in a little bit of order here. First of all, it's going to require the state party to meet at least 2 times a year. We meet now only at the whim of the chairman, but 2 times a year to use the committee system. The second thing, and this is very important, it's been inferred, but it's never been spelled out. They need to spell it out. All of the caucuses, and there will be created some new caucuses, all of the caucuses, including the minority caucus, will nominate at-large members. Last year, the minority caucus elected their at-large members. That is inconsistent with the DNC bylaws. Committees and caucuses cannot do that. So they nominate, and it's the full elected body, what we call the district level SDC members that are elected from the House districts, that must elect all add-on caucus members for whatever caucus it might be. Also, the provision is that add-on members, whether it's from the minority caucus or whether it's the newly created youth caucus, they don't vote, the add-on members don't vote on add-on members. In other words, the minority caucus add-ons will not be allowed to vote on the youth add-ons and vice versa. Only the elected district level folks will be allowed to vote on and elect the add-on members. The second thing is, and this has been an issue in the past, in terms of determining the number of additional members, we maintain what has been maintained for the minority caucus now for the last 20 or 30 years, that it is either the percentage in the Alabama population or the percentage of the Democratic electorate, whichever is greater. That's going to be maintained for all of these caucuses. The difference is that you're going to spell out that it's going to be the DNC that furnishes the percentages and the numbers based on their data, and it's not going to be just at the whim of the chair. So we will have an objective standard to do that. It's going to require that all of the meetings be open, that there be some kind of court reporter. I think somebody's opening and closing a door, but now here's the real, when it gets down to the nitty gritty. This is the big change. The bylaws change recognizes that there has been no affirmative action plan by the state party for years. And so it's going to create an affirmative action plan and create a new caucuses for youth, for Hispanics, for Asian Americans, for LGBTQ, and for disabled. And that has to,
if you're listening,
I'm kind of bored now.
Hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish. It will create these new caucuses that will have to add on people before a chair can be elected. Now, I don't know the numbers, but now the there are only, by my guess, and we haven't seen, Nancy sent out a number of questionnaires trying to get people to send in some personal data. We haven't seen those, but our best judgment, for instance, is that there are only 19 people on the state, out of the 250 some odd on the state Democratic Executive Committee, that are under the age of 36 and qualify for youth. They are the most underrepresented demographic in the entire state party. And so this bylaw could add as many as 50 youth because of their percentage of the population. And that will be one male and one female. So, assuming the number might be 50, I don't know what it will be, but it's going to be around that much. One each, 25 and 25. I don't know the numbers for Hispanic. We'll have to look at some things because LGBTQ, disabled, that is going to be some self-identification that's not part of the voter file, like Hispanic, white, African-American is in as part of the voter file. So these caucuses, that they will be created with this new set of bylaws that should go out hopefully pretty soon, assuming that the RBC approves them. It's going to probably add on at least a total of at least probably 60 people to the state party. And only then would there be an election for the chair and vice chair. Now, interestingly, and this is really important, this is extremely important, especially based on all the crap that's been said about me in the last couple of months. There is a specific provision that will be in these bylaws that reads as follows. Recognizing the critical role that Black Alabamians continue to play in the Democratic Party, including the very high percentage of votes for the Democratic candidate at all levels, the Youth Caucus, the LGBTQ Caucus, and Disabled Persons Caucus shall make every reasonable effort to ensure that the at-large candidates each caucus nominates for membership on the state committee is consistent with the diversity goals established for Black participation on the state committee. So everything that we're doing is to trying to maintain that same type of ratio and percentages, but add more people to include youth, to include and make our party the inclusive party that we all know it is, and not just a party for old people. When the state party has only 19 people under the age of 36, that is just stunning. And so that's basically, that is basically it. Those are going to be submitted. They've been submitted to the RBC today. We expect the RBC to look at these, and they're meeting on Friday. It is my understanding, and I think Tabitha said this, it is my understanding that until we come into compliance with the DNC bylaws that have been approved, we're not going to have a delegate selection plan that goes forward. The delegate selection plan that was sent up there last time, the votes were, they didn't even look at it because it was so bad and out of whack. So that's kind of where we are, and I'm hoping, and I'm really encouraging people to, as these come out, take a look at them. It is not going to be, these bylaws do not do everything that so many people want. I know there are people that want wholesale changes. You want to do a lot more. These bylaws, these suggestions, including keeping the minority caucus intact as it is, even though the election was not done properly, have been made over the course of the last several months by the DNC. So I feel very good, very, very good about these bylaws being able to pass muster on Friday, which would give us the opportunity to vote on them either by mail or at a meeting, and then immediately try to have a second meeting to vote for the new add-ons for the youth, Hispanics, and others, and then for a new chair and vice chair. And it's also going to change the dynamics for the executive board. Those will increase as well, but I didn't go into all of that. So that's kind of the spiel. And I appreciate everybody jumping on. I appreciate everybody's interest. And I know how frustrating this has been for people not really fully knowing what was going on. I haven't known what's fully going on, much to everybody's chagrin. I've had a pretty good idea of what was happening. But we're on the cusp right now. If we can take these and get these approved, and it's going to require everybody, we cannot get around to start picking this to death and making amendments. If we start making amendments, that's going to delay the process even more. And our qualifying is going to start very soon. And by law, our qualifying has to end on about November the 8th, which means all of the candidates who are going to be running in this election, including delegates, have to be on the ballot and qualified by November the 8th, or else we are in a world of hurt. So time is of the essence of getting these approvals and then getting the election of the chair. And I'm happy to try to Tabitha answer any questions anybody have before I've got to run out again. And I apologize. It's damn schedule up here is just killing me. It's crazy, but it is what it is. But I'm glad I had an opportunity to speak. Tabitha, thank you for letting me do that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here, Senator Jones. We really appreciate it. If folks have questions, I'm going to unmute. And actually, why don't you just put if you can write your questions in the box, the chat box, that'll be great. If you're not able to unmute yourself. And let's see what questions we've seen already. One person was asking Senator Jones if you could clarify, does this mean that the at-large members don't vote on new SDEC members, but they do vote on chair and vice chair?
Yeah, it does mean, it means that let me try to, the at-large members for each caucus will not vote on other at-large members. Okay, so that for this election, it means that the at-large members that were put on by the minority caucus will not be able to vote on the add-ons for the youth, Hispanics, and others. Only those people who were elected in the election last June will get to vote on those on the add-ons this time. The same will be true when we organize again. The youth will not be able to vote on the add-ons for the minority caucus, and the minority caucus won't be able to do it. Only the elected members. Once the add-ons are added to the State Democratic Executive Committee, all members of all add-ons and all the elected members, and we'll probably end up with a committee of over 300, will get to vote on the chair and vice chair and any other officers down the road.
And do you know if the DNC is sending someone to oversee the process?
The DNC order of February says that elections should be held under the supervision of the DNC. I don't think they've ever identified anybody at this point because we've just not gotten to a point where there's a meeting. There's a question as to whether or not the bylaws will be conducted by mail and then having a separate meeting for the chair and vice chair, or whether we have to have a full-blown meeting to do the bylaws and then a subsequent meeting for chair and vice chair. But the order of February says it will be conducted under the supervision of the DNC. I don't think the specifics have been ironed out on that.
Great. Any other questions specifically? The other questions that we've gotten are about process of moving this forward. Does anyone else have questions specifically about the bylaws that are being proposed?
And Tabitha, on the process, let me go back real quick on, because the process with these bylaws,
Oh, sorry, I muted you. I didn't mean to. Let me find you.
The process for these bylaws, the process for these bylaws are going to be, they will be in front of the Rules and Bylaws Committee on Friday, which means the election process on these particular bylaws should start soon, like next week, whether it's by mail or an election being called for a meeting. That's That's the kind of the first process that has to take place. That's why it's so important, I believe, for folks to look at these bylaws and recognize it's kind of the Mick Jagger school of politics. You can't always get everything you want, but you get what you need. This is what we need to move this party forward, and I strongly urge people to vote for them.
All right, I'm gonna, I can't see which one is you, Senator Jones. I'm trying to mute everybody but you, but I can't figure out which number is yours. Let's see if I can figure it out here. If you can type what, oh, he's the number ending 1974, okay?
That's it.
All right.
Yep, that's me. That's me. Thank you.
All right. And one of the questions was, when will they be posted so that we can read and review?
I think that they're going to start getting posted tonight. I just don't know how, but there'll be two things. There will be a summary, and then all the bylaws will be the changes that are formally being submitted, which again is probably 30 pages or more, will be posted as well. Tabitha, I don't know.
If you want to send
just start watching.
I can post.
Yeah, just start watching social media and everywhere else because they'll get posted.
Okay, and
they're going to start getting posted tonight,
so that we can get them in lots of places. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so I think all the other questions are about process, so let's go ahead and jump into those things at this point. So
okay, I'm out.
Okay,
if that's
thank
okay.
You so much.
I'm probably going to drop. Thank
okay.
you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being here. So the short time frame, I know Pete has asked about that. The reason that we're on, so the goal is to make sure that we get all of this done before the end of the qualifying period, which is November 8th. So, and there are two different reasons for wanting to do that. One is that the chair of the party needs to certify all of the candidates who qualify in order for those candidates to be approved by the Secretary of State to be put on the ballot. If we do not have a recognized, agreed upon chair, it is possible that our Secretary of State would not certify our candidates and would not put them on the ballot. That is a worst case scenario, but it makes me nervous given who our Secretary of State is. So that's one good reason to make sure we get it all done by November 8th. The second good reason to make sure we get it all done by November 8th is that our delegate selection plan involves having delegates who are elected on the primary ballot. And right now we are not approved to have any delegates. So we need to make sure, I think, to be safe and secure in having our delegates on ballots, we need to be sure that we have an approved delegate selection plan. And the DNC has already said they won't approve our delegate selection plan until we pass new bylaws and have a new election for chair and vice chair. So that's why we're working so hard to get all of this done by November 8th. So we're aiming for having the election for chair and vice chair on November 2nd. That's the last Saturday before the end of qualifying. And we're aiming to have the bylaws, the meeting where we vote on bylaws on October 12th. So let me go ahead and jump in. Oh, like the info he shared. Okay, I'm trying to read comments. Yeah, when will the info he shared? He seemed to say, Senator Jones seemed to say that the bylaws would be available for review in the next 24 hours, which is great. And then we have a plan that I'm going to talk about for getting those bylaws mailed out to people, since not everybody who's on the SDEC uses email and goes online to find things. So again, I think it's really important to note that as Senator Jones said, the SDEC is much older on average. And so one of our challenges communicating in any way other than by postal mail is not reliable for reaching a lot of SDEC members. And so we need to make sure that we're doing that. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump into this process and the timeline. So again, the two important dates to remember are one, October 12th, that's a Saturday, would be the day when we're trying to have the first meeting. And at that meeting, the SDEC would vote on the approval of the bylaws. Now, my sense is that we need to have that as a meeting in person. It would be great if we could just do it by mail, but our current bylaws are still in effect, and our current bylaws do not say that the SDEC has the power to hold an election by mail. It does say that the SDEC has the power to call for a meeting, and then once they have a meeting, they can do, they can do something like pass new bylaws. So I think that we have to have a meeting in order to get that done, or at least that we'll be more likely to avoid a lawsuit if we have a meeting rather than try and pass those bylaws by mail. And everybody can attend those meetings, but only SDEC members can vote. So I hear you, Joe. Oh, so Joanne is saying the election needs to be a week earlier than you suggested to allow at least a week of qualifying period for candidates. So my understanding is that candidates can qualify. They can submit their qualification papers. And as long as when the papers are all turned into the Secretary of State, by that point we have everything worked out. And we're, trying to do this quickly, but also make sure that there's no question that we did things properly. So everybody needs to have time to receive a ballot by mail and time to return the ballot by mail, which means that none of the turnarounds can happen faster than a week, just given the realities of snail mail. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ignore the group chat for a minute. If a couple people would monitor that and tell me about questions here in a minute, that would be great. But I want to go ahead and share with you this document. Okay. So this is a big project. There are lots of moving parts, and we are going to need a lot of people to step up to complete these things. And I have laid out as much as I could. I have done the work ahead of time, but I didn't want to be the one making the decisions because I'm not an SDEC member. So I want to make sure that SDEC folks have the opportunity to make a significant portion of the decisions that need to be made. So to get this done, I'm proposing that there be 4 teams that meet at least weekly to go through the plan. And those 4 teams are, the first team is bylaws and compliance. And those folks will not be working on getting bylaws approved by the DNC, because Senator Jones has already facilitated that process along with Anthony and Carol and Chris. So that's awesome. But their project will be making sure that there is a vote to hold a meeting about the bylaws and getting kind of that process moving. So then Team 2's job is affirmative action and outreach. An important part of the change that we're going through right now as a party is that we are taking seriously the call for the Democratic Party in Alabama to reflect the values that we have claimed, which is we have claimed to be a party of inclusion, a party that makes room for people, that supports and the special needs that folks have. And so we want to make sure that we have things like interpreters when they're needed, that we have live captioning for people who are hard of hearing, that we have resources and supports for people with a variety of disabilities, and that our full committee reflects the diversity of our full party, which is pretty spectacular diversity. And we want to make sure that it's happening in leadership, not just on the ground. So that's what the affirmative action team will do, and they will meet on Thursdays at 6 p.m. The meeting logistics team will do the actual planning of those 2 meetings, the 12th on October 12th and November 2nd. So they will need to book the space. And we've already done research on, and reached out to spaces and asked for bids and tried to get that process moving. But I want that decision about where to have the meeting to be made by SDEC members. And then fourth, team 4 will be focused on process and procedure. And that group will be meeting Saturday mornings and will be focused on the agenda for each of those meetings and making sure that we're working with team 1 to make sure that we're in compliance with the bylaws that are in effect at that moment, and making sure that the agenda will get us through the material that we need to cover in a efficient, respectful, inclusive way, because this is tense. These are tense decisions that are being made, and these will be tense conversations. So making sure the agenda is really carefully managed will be important. So that would be the work of team 4. And then there are some envelope stuffing activities that need to be done. And my hope is that 4 different regions of the state will step up to do these. And we'll say, yeah, here in Tuscaloosa, we could take we could do an envelope stuffing party, and someone would take the lead on that and make sure that it happens on the day that it needs to happen, that the materials all look good, and that everything gets out on time. So I can't overstate the extent to which this is a timeline that does not forgive. If one group fails to meet a deadline, the whole thing, like dominoes, is going to fall, and we will not be able to have our elections done before the end of the qualifying period. So everybody needs to do their work on time in order for this all to work out correctly. Now, I know y'all, and I believe in you, and I believe we can get it done. But I want to be clear that just as Senator Jones says, at this point, we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Of course, we would like for everything to be perfect. And if we had more time, we would do so. But we're going to have to get some things done, even if they're not 100% perfect. All righty. All right, so questions at this point before I go on? Can anybody unmute themselves and tell me what's been going on in the chat box? No, it looks like they can't. Okay.
Tabitha, can you hear me? This is
yeah,
Karen.
I can hear you, Karen. Thank you.
Wonderful. It wasn't covered by Doug Jones, but he said all this work was being done in the background. Do we know for sure that nobody else is working on the process and that this is the process that needs to go forward so these bylaws can get approved by November 8th? Or is that something that will need to be checked on outside this call and then get back to the group if somebody else has a different way that they want to roll out the vote on this?
Well, I have been calling the members of the SDEC kind of nonstop for the last 5 months, and nobody has told me of another plan. So my sense is that there is not another group working to organize something, but it is always possible that someone else will organize something. And it's a risk. Making this public is a risk that someone else who doesn't want us to succeed will jump in and produce a alternative plan. But I thought it was more important that we have this be transparent and that anyone who wants to participate can do so. So we're going to do this out in the open, even though that means we're easier to sabotage.
No, I think it's fine to say this is the process until we hear anything different from any other group. It's just helpful for the people on the call to know that's why we're headed in this direction, because he did identify nobody else necessarily working on getting it done.
Correct. Nobody else that we know of is working on it.
Hey, it's Lane.
Hey, Lane.
Hey, I came to the call late, but have we talked about media strategy yet? Or,
no. So maybe let's have that call separate, have that conversation separately. Because
I've been working on another media project all day, so.
I just want to make sure we get this done.
Yeah.
What I don't want is the media to be reporting that we had a plan and we didn't do it. So I think our top priority needs to be getting it done. But certainly, again, I believe in transparency. If you want to talk to press about stuff, no complaints from me. I think we should all be as transparent as possible about what's going on.
I do too. I also think we need to, put out a narrative that's productive rather than the Nancy narrative of just the party of do nothing.
But let me just address that a little bit. So I want to be extra clear. This process is intended to get us bylaws and an election. This process is not the Tabitha get Tabitha elected campaign. This is not Tabitha Eisner for chair campaign. This is totally separate. If I hope and pray that we get people on this call, on other calls who don't want me to be chair. I want everybody to be involved in this process or else it's not going to be legitimate. I have already reached out to Will Boyd and said, I want you and your teammates to be on every call and calling us out if we're doing anything that you think favors one candidate over another. I have called Nancy. Her voicemail, it doesn't work right now, but I have texted Nancy and said, I want you to be a part of this. I have reached out to Joe Reed. So my goal is to make sure that these meetings include people with a wide variety of end goals.
Right.
Because this isn't not a legitimate process unless it is literally open to everyone, not just people who support my candidacy. So if you don't support me, I'm so glad you're here. And I will continue to campaign on the side, but most importantly is that we make sure that Alabama Democratic voters are heard when it comes to the presidential convention next July. Costs. Okay, so cost is a great question. The ADP is supposed to be paying for this process, but I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll pay for it. Enough people want this to happen. We're just going to pay for it. So I'm collecting money. If you want to make a donation, you can. There is the link right there where you can make donations. It's totally transparent, so it shows you exactly who's given what money, so you can see who's funding this. And there is a spreadsheet on the Google Drive where you can see exactly what our budget is. You can see it here as well. But what we're spending, and we're going to be transparent, receipts and all, to make sure that it's clear how this was paid for. I wish someone else was paying for it, but there you go. That's all I got. If Nancy wants to participate in this process, that would be great. That's in my questions up here. She certainly has had the opportunity to do so for the last 5 months and has not done it. But if she wants to get involved, she is welcome. I will not turn her or Joe Reed or anyone else away from this process. Yes.
Tabitha.
Yeah.
One of the questions here, and a question that I've had is, it seemed to me until this phone call that the DNC and Senator Jones weren't really continuing to be super involved. I took the no information as nothing happening. And so the question still remains for me, and I think some other people, is if the DNC continues to be involved, do they have any mechanism to force a meeting outside of this, getting 50% plus one of the membership to call for one?
The message that I took from that last letter from Tom Perez was that they are not doing anything more for us.
Yeah,
they've done what they're going to do, and at this point it's up to us. That's my impression of where we are, and I think the senator would say the same thing. So getting bylaws approved is what they can do for us, or pre-approved. we still have to, SDEC still has to vote on those bylaws. And I have talked to lots of legislators about this. Folks know this is happening. They're supportive of this happening, but they also have a lot of stuff on their plates. And I think it's also important to note that for some people, being part of this process is riskier than it is for others. So I want to be respectful of the fact that for some people, it's a scary thing to be part of this process, because there are all of these dynamics at play. And a lot of people will be happy when it's over, but aren't willing to take the risk to be involved in the process. And I think it's important that we respect that, and move forward as best we can. And if people don't want to vote for this, they don't have to, but we're going to have a vote, darn it. Let's see, DNC will ensure an election places bylaws are accepted. I do not think that DNC can force an election, Philip.
Right. Hello, Tabitha.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, this is Mike Smith. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. I have a question. Back before the first deadline, you were correct earlier that we are still under the bylaws that exist now, the ones that we had when we were in Washington there back in February. I submitted 5 resolutions for changes to the bylaws. I sent them certified mail. I made the DNC aware of it. I kept all my tickets, and they were put in before that June deadline to Nancy and to the state party. When we put together this bylaws committee, I would like to make sure again that as a member of the SDEC, I have the right to put in a resolution for change. I put in 5 of them. Are you familiar with them?
I have not seen them, I don't think.
Okay,
I'm familiar with the bylaws. So let's see here.
I am too. I've been fighting on them for about 5 or 6 years. But I said the process is that you submit a resolution for change, and very extensive resolutions that I wrote up, and I have sent them to the state in a timely manner and sent them certified mail and got the receipt so that they know I got them. I guess what I'm saying is, as a member of the SDC, I intend to have them brought to the floor, okay? And like you said earlier, what we do with them, I think that, we've got no communications. We're not able, I've talked to as many people as I could and followed as much as I could waiting. And you are right about the DNC. The DNC can't do anything from this point. It's the membership's time to stop, take them out of office, and call for a new election. We can do that as a body. And there's some confusion about rules of order and following the bylaws. Rules of order still apply. And there are ways, there are avenues to get this done. It can be done, and I'm glad that somebody's doing something. I've been, doing my best to communicate with people and try to get something going. And I'm here to help. But I'll get you.
So you're totally right, Mike, and I've got it pulled up here on the screen if y'all can see it. The current bylaws, Article 11, Section 2, say that any member of the state committee can propose an amendment to the bylaws, and there's, it goes on to say how you should do that, and it says how the chair is supposed to respond. And I had heard that it had happened and that she had not responded in the way that she's supposed to.
Well, the submission of them before that deadline of June the 15th, I did. The reason I got certified mail is so that they can't ignore it.
Right.
Okay? And whoever becomes our chair. No, we hadn't had the meeting. Submitting them is one thing. When you come to the next meeting, that's when I go to the floor and my resolutions have been turned in. They've had time to look at them. Everybody's had time to look at them. And then I'll bring them to the floor. That's the way the rules of order work. It has to be done in the context of that meeting.
Yep. Yeah.
And
So that's what. Can you see the screen, Mike?
Do what now?
Can you see the screen, or are you just on phone?
I am on the phone in the truck hauling grain, so I'm I'm trying to keep up best I can.
Yeah. So what I'm showing on the screen is the actual language from the bylaws, and so yes, there is a process that's supposed to be followed, and it has not been followed. You know, the chair is supposed to respond forthwith, and she did not respond to your proposals forthwith. But so the part that I am unclear about, and perhaps we can get Senator Jones to say some more about this, is that the DNC has said that we must pass bylaws that have been pre-approved by them. And so I'm not clear on whether your proposed amendments have been pre-cleared and how we deal with amendments. So I think what Senator Jones was proposing when he was on the call was that we hold off on additional changes and amendments, although we know they're needed, that we hold off on them for the sake of getting something in place by November 2nd so that we are confident our delegation will be seated. And then we can have another meeting forthwith to make some additional changes. But our top priority has to be getting the getting us to a point where we are recognized again by the DNC and able to attend the delegation, or able to send a delegation to the National Convention in 2020.
Yes, I think on the bylaws, what I understood Senator Jones to say is correct. We have to have something before the DNC. That doesn't mean that's going to be our next bylaws. When we do elect new officers, the first thing that we need to do is have a bylaws committee.
Yes.
Those bylaws will be tentative and we do this. We're getting our cart before our horse, and there's a lot of confusion out there. And I argued with a few people, the rules of order still apply. And the rules of order are what allows you to change those bylaws and what allows you to take the current officers out of office. Not them not being credentialed. It has to come from the body. Now, what you explained earlier is correct. The DNC has done their part. This is democracy. This means that the body has to step up and take the action to remove them from office. Then they can, and then we need to schedule another meeting to have elections and elect our officers. And then the first order of business for those officers has to be to go back into these bylaws. I'm not going to take out what I put in. I wouldn't have went to that much trouble to do it. And I've been fighting this for several years, you know. So we need to, the bylaws that you're looking at now, that we look at, I know them well, they're not functional because of the changes that have been going on over the last 10 years. They're too contradictory. They didn't redact things before they put things in, and just trying to follow the bylaws is going to lead us down a wrong path. Now, granted, what Senator Jones says, we need to put something out there, anything as a tentative set of bylaws that they can approve. Yeah. But then they have to be approved by this body after the new officers are elected and the seats are done in the proper order and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I've got those out there, and I'll get them to use.
Awesome.
I sent them out to a lot of people. Okay, and I'm here to help.
Wonderful.
So,
well, we appreciate it, Mike, and yes, thank you for being proactive about that at a time when a lot of us were just waiting to see what would happen. But let's focus for a minute on the process. So I've got pulled up on the screen now. I know not everybody can see it, so I'm just going to describe it. A timeline, and this timeline, so it starts with September 20th. That's Friday, when the bylaws that Senator Jones was just talking about will hopefully be pre-approved by the DNC's Rules and Bylaws Committee. And then we need to, the chunk that I'm talking about right now is the work of Team 1. Maybe I can even write that in here.
Tabitha, can I ask a question? This is Linda.
Yeah, can you hold on a minute, Linda?
I sure can.
Okay, thanks. So team one needs to, once those bylaws are pre-approved, team one needs to move as quickly as possible towards making sure we have a plan for how to how to call a meeting. So according to the bylaws, the SDEC members are allowed to call a meeting. 50% plus one of the SDEC has to call for the meeting. Now they don't say what it means, what it looks like to call for a meeting, but I'm going with, it looks like a ballot. It looks like everybody sent a ballot and asked to return it, and the ballot says, do you want to call for a meeting? So that would, those ballots would go out on September 25th. Now you'll notice that is 1 week from today. That is so fast. A lot of things have to be put in place in order for that ballot to go out on September 25th. But we need for it to, so that ballots can come back by 5 p.m. on October 2nd, and then for a meeting to be held 10 days later on the 12th. So all this timeline is tight. And that is where I am asking, begging, pleading, that we're all going to have to set aside some of the things that we care deeply about for a time in order to get this done on a really tight timeline. And it also it interacts with other teams' work as well. So this team, team one, needs to find someone who can objectively collect and count the ballots. So some kind of accounting or legal firm, and I have it. Some of my folks have been working on identifying, sending out requests for bids to a variety of different firms to try and find somebody who can do that. But it's going to be very important that we have that done professionally, I think, so that we can have integrity in reporting out the results of that vote. We also, though, very quickly need to know where this meeting is going to be held on October 12th. So the logistics team picking a location and booking it is critical to being able to call for a election on October 12th. So all of these pieces fit together very tightly. So then the way this works is I'm inviting all of you and more to join these teams. And there is not a formal joining process. This is open source in the sense that anybody and everybody can participate to the extent that you want to. We got some dogs. What's challenging about that is that there's probably not going to be a clear leader on every call. But we're going to need for you to stay on task. So I'm going to provide my team is going to provide a facilitator for every conversation, who at the bare minimum will record the meeting, make sure that some notes were taken, and try and make sure that things are happening as they're supposed to be happening. There are also, so here we have our Google Drive. Let me make it bigger, easier to see. So there's this Google Drive. Everyone, the link to this folder is public, so anyone can come to this folder and see this information. Within the Team 1 folder, you'll see that there is a detailed plan that includes an agenda for the meeting that will happen later this evening. Here's the draft agenda for the September 18th meeting. This folder also includes the request for bids to administer the vote by mail process to call for a meeting. It includes the potential CPA firms that we have contacted and asked for bids. It includes the ballot that could be a draft ballot that could be used to send out to these folks, to the SDEC members, and ask for them to return it. So I've tried to provide, and I will continue to try to provide, as much of the work already pre-done as possible, but the group still needs to make some decisions. And the group is comprised of the people who show up that day to that meeting.
Yeah. Tabitha, let me interrupt a minute. If this happens like Senator Jones outlined, and the DNC mandates that this happens, is that going to negate some of the planning that you've set forth?
No,
That-
so the DNC has already mandated, back in
That's true.
February, the DNC mandated that the bylaws be changed and the election be held no later than May 15th. And that came and
Right.
went. And then they said no later than August 15th, and that came and went. So that's the
So
only.
let's not depend on them to do what they need to do.
Right.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. But yes, we don't move forward. So step one, I mean, we're going to send out these ballots and ask the SDEC to call for a meeting. But if the SDEC, if we don't get 50% plus one to return a ballot, the plan is dead. We can try again, but we will no longer make this timeline if we don't get 50% plus one. I swear to you, the ice cream truck only comes by my house when I'm on a webinar. Amazing. Y'all hear it?
Well, I think that's the way to go, is to act like they're not going to do what they're supposed to do.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not going to do what they're supposed to do. I think we have
Perfect.
adequate evidence of that.
Thank you.
And the first ballot that goes out will just be, it will say, here, I'll even open it for you. First ballot will say, we want to hold an in-person meeting of the Alabama State Democratic Executive Committee on October 12th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at such and such location for the purpose of considering amended bylaws. Are you for it? We need 50% plus one of SDEC members to check this I vote for it box, or the plan stalls. So once we get this, then we can actually have that meeting on October 12th. On October 12th, the agenda will be approving those bylaws.
And we have addresses or email addresses for all SDEC members?
We do. We know that some of them are not good, but they are the ones that were submitted to the party.
Good enough.
And then at that October 12th meeting, if we do in fact pass new bylaws, then we can hold a vote and vote to meet again on November 2nd. If people do indeed vote to meet on November 2nd, then we meet on November 2nd, and on November 2nd, we hold an election for new seats that were created via the new bylaws and for a new chair and vice chair. But those are, every step along this way, everything has to go right. If we fail on step one, we start over. If we fail on step two, we start over. If we fail on step three, we have to start over. So I just want to emphasize that point. Yes, okay, so then people are asking about, what are the details of this? So again, team one or team three, the logistics team, would go into the details of finding an appropriate location. So you can see in the team three folder, I thought I uploaded that already. Here we go. Team three has both a detailed plan that includes agenda for the meeting. It also has a document with meeting location bids. Not everything in here is going to be created by me. Y'all are going to be creating documents that go in here. So if there's something that you're ready to step up and help with, do it, and then you can come save it in this folder to be used. Yes, so we're guessing for meeting location, for example, we're guessing that we need 400, room for 400, seated theater style, one podium microphone. And here are the locations that have already been contacted and asked for a bid. Okay, let's see, Franny. I'm still confused about one thing. Who will vote on the new bylaws? Okay, so the first vote will be for to call a meeting, and all 245 members get to vote. So that's the 210 numbered seats plus all the at-large. They all get to vote on having a meeting or not having a meeting. In terms of passing new bylaws, everybody gets to vote. That's my understanding. Not just elected district level members, but everybody, including at large. Then it's the seating of new members where only those who are in numbered seats get to vote. Does that answer your question, Franny? Anyone else have contradictory interpretation of things? That's Kathleen's perception as well. Okay. Yes. So Cassandra says tonight's Team 1 meeting needs to formalize the process for getting the ballot out to the SDEC members. Yes, I think I have provided a pretty good draft plan for how that will work, including a work group. So a team somewhere around the state that would stuff the envelopes and actually do the mailing. I think is how we'll get a lot of this stuff done. It'd be great if we could afford to pay for it, but I think our timeline is just so tight that we can't pay for a professional mailing at this point. All right. So again, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to ask how many of you are able to access this drive and have been able to get there?
Say that again.
How many of you have been able to get to this drive? I'll put the link in here.
Yeah, it was easy to get to.
Everyone, there we go. So that's the link to this. I just sent it out in the chat box. They're also on my website.
For those of us on the phone, could you tell us the address to it?
It is a Google Drive address, so it's very long and complicated, but there is a link to it on my website. And I can post it elsewhere if needed.
Tabitha, this is Kathy. Can you put it in the chat so we can all just hit it?
Yes, I did just do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tabitha.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Mike Smith again. You were talking about the 243. The stuff that we got from the decision that came from the Rules and Bylaws Committee. I think that's something that needs to be up for discussion. They done something we've been arguing for years, is that the people elected through the voting box, through the ballot boxes, vote first, and then you seat the at-large, because the body has to approve the at-large. We didn't approve the at-large, which has been the contested point for a long time. So when you have this vote, it should be only the people that are through the ballot box. They turn down the credentials of the chair and the vice chair, and that should apply to all elections after that. But
no, the DNC said the previous elected at large will be voting members.
Yep.
But the body didn't vote on it.
But we could have that argument about what they should have said. But again, I feel like we're not going to move forward unless we.
And you got that from the DNC?
Yep, that's what the DNC said.
Okay, if that's what they said.
They're grandfathered in.
Boy, that's a stretch, but okay. Because their decision came back that when we do it again, that we would, the body itself would vote on the at-large members to come in.
Yes,
correct.
Yes.
You elect officers before you do that.
Yes.
And we've been arguing that point for several years too, and I understood what I read from the DNC, that they somewhat agreed with that. Since y'all are in touch with them, I would appreciate it if you'd inquire one more time, because we have legitimate elections through the ballot boxes for all the SDEC seats. that should be the people that vote. Everything that happened in August, they've already discarded.
Well,
I don't have any problem with
they didn't.
at-large seats. It's that the at-large seats never got voted on.
Well, it's just that the DNC said that they were going to honor those seats, and they were not going to kick those people off. And I think that was a sign of respect to the Black community to say, we're not trying to come after you, and we're not trying to come after the minority caucus. We're talking specifically about these other problems. And I think it was a concession that was made. And you can argue about whether it's reasonable or unreasonable as a concession, but it's been made. And I don't think we can fight it at this point.
Who's been making the concession?
The DNC.
I mean, who?
It was the DNC, rules and bylaws.
Who are they communicating with in the state that's in the SDEC besides Nancy?
Oh, nobody. But again, this is, I mean, so part of why I think this is so important as a process is that there has not been transparency. Lots of decisions get made behind closed doors. In this party, nationally, and in this party, statewide. Lots of decisions get made behind closed doors. And it is very frustrating to a lot of people. And it makes it feel like we're betraying our own core values of democracy when it's an elite few who get to make decisions. Now, I have no doubt people have good intentions, but that is how it feels to lots of us, is that it's not transparent, and it's the good old boys or good old girls or good old whoever that's making these decisions behind closed doors. So what I'm hoping is that this process is the first of many steps in the direction towards transparency and inclusion. We have to prove, though, that we are not cats. This process is not going to be herding cats. We are going to be efficient and focused, and we're going to get things done. And we have to do that to prove that there is another way to run a party. You don't have to run a party by having a small group of trusted friends with whom you make all the decisions. You can run a party in a transparent, open, inclusive way. But we are talking about that concept here today. I know. I'm just going on my soapbox a little bit. Can you?
I've been on mine a long time. I know what you mean. I agree 100%. But then I just wanted to make that point because that has been, that's the essence of the issue of how they won the election. And I'm talking about the officers. I'm not talking about the ADC. I've been a member of the ADC for a long time. And I don't have a problem with the ADC. The way that they appoint at-large seats, number one, you don't appoint in a democracy. You elect. But we have, this party is a mess in Alabama. We know that. It's not a problem to question the system and say, are we doing this correctly? Now, I don't have anything personally against those seats that were seated, other than they were done out of order, and the DNC decision agreed with that.
We're going to
and if the DNC wants to grandfather them, that's fine. I think we're going to win the election anyway.
Right, that's the key, Mike. We need to focus on winning the election, not on complaining about what the DNC decided that we don't agree with. I'm not saying they're right. What I'm saying is we have to stay focused because this timeline is tight. There's a lot of work to be done, and we've got to stay focused on winning it, and winning it in a way that shows that, you know, Franny rightly pointed out, there are a lot of white people on this call and not a lot of non-white people on this call. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But we need to make it clear that this process is open to everyone, and we need to make it clear that we are not trying to exclude anybody from the SDEC, and we are trying to make this fair. So I really appreciate that constantly being a concern for all of us. And there are people of color who are going to be part of the teams, who I haven't necessarily seen on the call tonight, but who are going to be part of it. And please encourage the folks that you know to be part of these teams so that we can have a more diverse set of perspectives at the table to ensure that we're not accidentally, that's one thing white people do all the time. We accidentally exclude people. We accidentally make decisions that are culturally domineering. And so we need to make sure that we have people at the table intentionally to tell us when we're not being inclusive. Yeah,
I agree with you, and I want you to know I would never exclude anybody, and if you knew me, you'd know that. And I will always stand up and point out an injustice when I see it. I said my part. I can, you know, whatever, I'll disagree. But if the governing body, the DNC, says they want to grandfather them, that's fine with me.
Yep.
If I were in a position to, which I don't know who in this state is in a position to, I would question that, how we set this up. As we move forward and fix this, what we've got to do is not try to replace one regime with another regime. And I'm afraid that's what we're going to head towards. And we got to follow the order and do it the right way, whether it's what we want or not, or whether we agree with it. But in the end, you got to do it the right way. So
and I think
that's been my concern all along.
Yeah, I think what we're doing too is we're building muscles. We're building the muscles of showing that grassroots folks can do stuff. We can lead stuff. We can make things happen. We can make, you know, lots of things are possible when regular everyday people step up and take responsibility for where the organization is headed. And so that's what I want to see happening through this process. And we're going to be better at it after we've practiced through this process. And there's going to be more changes that we can make. But I also want to be clear that all along the way, one of our core values has to be affirmative action and outreach to make sure that just as much as we're trying to make this party procedurally fair, we're also trying to make it reflect the diversity of the people that we represent. So let's do that.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay, so
we can do both.
Mike, we need to move on here. We only got 10 minutes left. So you do not have to officially sign up for a team. You can call in on whatever team you want to volunteer on. If you are interested in providing leadership, I'm not saying be the leader of a team. These teams aren't going to have official leaders unless the group self-selects to have one. But if you want to provide leadership by taking notes, by coordinating and following up with people, you can certainly do that. And what I will do is put a little, I think one of the difficult parts about making this public is I don't want to make everybody's contact info public necessarily, but I want to make sure people have each other's contact information. So we'll try and figure out a good system for making sure that everybody can share their contact information with one another and stay in touch within teams. But I want to also be respectful of people's privacy and not put your cell phone number out on the internet. But yes, please call in to be part of these teams, and please help these teams stay on task. It is so challenging because everybody has big feelings and a lot of opinions about this situation, but time is of the essence, so we're going to have to stay focused. And if you're not able to be on any of the phone calls, I try to make them at varying times throughout the week. But if you're not able to be a part of any of those phone calls, there are other things I'm sure that need to be done. And we will keep posting those things. Definitely, though, looking for 4 groups around the state to host envelope stuffing parties. So please contact me at Tabitha at tabithaeisner.com. I'll put that in the chat box too, but it's very simple. Tabitha at tabithaeisner.com. You can reach me if you are willing to lead one of those work groups. And of course, donate if you are able. If you have expendable money, please, now is the time to chip in for your state party. Please do that. And I'm going to be focused on fundraising the next few days, but we need to have that money in place so that we can book these rooms and get this stuff taken care of as soon as possible. The call-in number for each of the meetings is on the the plan itself. So the open source plan, which is in that, so it is in the Google Drive. There's the document, and it has call-in info for each team. Team 1, this will be your call-in info every time. Team 2, your call-in info stays the same time to time. So it's in 3 different places. It is on my website, tabithaeisner.com. It is in this document on the Google Drive, and it is also in the Facebook events that are on my Facebook page, but I know not everyone does Facebook. All right, any other questions about process, like how to get involved and how to stay afloat on what's going on? I will send out regular email updates, but please just go to the Drive on a regular basis, and the recordings of meetings will be in here, and notes from meetings will be in each of the team folders. As soon as those meetings happen, we'll post notes in the team folders so that you can keep up with what's going on. All right, people are volunteering for work days. Yay! Any other questions? I'm going to unmute everybody in case there are questions. Anybody?
Again.
Yes, I'm sorry since I'm on the phone and can't see. What was the third committee?
The third committee is meeting
Yes,
logistics. So team 1 is bylaws and compliance with those bylaws. Team 2 is affirmative action and outreach. Team 3 is meeting logistics. And team 4 is process and procedure. So setting the agendas for those meetings, making sure we cover the necessary material.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, Tabitha, this is Eddie. I just want to let you know I've been on for a while, but I just didn't say anything. But I wanted to let you know I was on here.
All right, great. Thanks, Eddie.
Hey, Tabitha, this is Susan. I've been on here, but I was a little bit late, puppy, but I've been on here since a little after 6.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Tabitha, this is Lynn.
Yes?
Yeah, can you tell me the date of the current charter and bylaws for the Alabama Democratic thing? What is the most current date?
Yep, so I believe they were last updated December 17th of 2018. They can be found, a PDF of the current bylaws can be found on that Google Drive as well.
December 17, 2018.
Yep.
There's also a copy of them on the unofficial SDEC page.
Great.
I'm going to issue a challenge for everyone that was on the call tonight to make at least some kind of small donation. If you possibly can, let's try to make a small donation tonight before midnight just to show Tabitha that we're all in and that we're going to get this done.
Thank you.
Hey, Tabitha. Hey, Tabitha. I'm fixing to go to another meeting, but has anybody committed to hosting the envelope stuffing party yet?
I've just been getting emails in the last 30 seconds about that.
Okay.
But let's see, where are you wanting to do one, Lane? Huntsville?
Well, yeah, in Huntsville, but if we got someone, already doing it, then it would be great to just launch on that and help them.
Are you volunteering to be a leader?
Of course I am.
Excellent.
I got to call you later.
All right, yeah, contact me. And so it looks like we've got Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Huntsville, and I know Montgomery can pull one off too. So
I can do it in Mobile if you need me to.
Awesome. Well, let me know what dates. The 4 dates that we need them done are very specific dates. It can't be a different day. So let me know if you're, which of those dates you're up for hosting that event, and then we'll assign location. All right. Oh yeah, I'll put the donation link in as well. In the chat box, so y'all can make your donations.